Recent events have left the people of our nation feeling abandoned and forgotten, and we'll explore how this administration's actions, or rather inactions, have contributed to this sentiment. Our story begins in Maui, Hawaii, a place known for its tropical beauty and serenity. But today, Maui is a far cry from paradise as horrific scenes of devastation have unfolded. Entire city blocks have turned to ash, and families have perished in their cars and homes. The death toll stands at 115, with over 850 people still missing. The scale of this tragedy is staggering, with some estimates suggesting up to 1,000 lives may have been lost. To put this in perspective, less than 150 people lost their lives in Florida's last Category 4 hurricane, and Hurricane Katrina claimed around 1,300 lives.
There was certainly a lot to criticize. It was a failure of government at every level. The scale of Hurricane Katrina overwhelmed the federal emergency management agency, FEMA. They were not prepared for a crisis of that size and a dislocation of that many people. Emergency response in the United States is typically driven by states and localities first, with federal assistance coming in behind that. And you also had multiple levels of breakdown in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana as well. And so the agencies were uncoordinated. FEMA had recently become part of the newly created Department of Homeland Security. And so the chain of command issues also came into play there as well. And so instructions would be given from Washington that would change on the ground, and then coordinating with local and state officials became almost impossible because of the corruption and troubles that they had within their own governments. And pardon the expression, but it was a perfect storm of government failure at all levels.
Yeah. In the aftermath of Katrina, President George W. Bush faced intense scrutiny for not visiting the affected areas sooner. The media and the public were unforgiving. However, the media's response to President Biden's handling of the Maui disaster has been strikingly different. The president's initial refusal to visit Maui and his subsequent actions speak volumes about his priorities. While the people of Maui were suffering, Biden spent weeks on not one, but two separate vacations.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
First, during a 10-day getaway in Delaware, he couldn't even be bothered to comment on the disaster, seemingly indifferent to the suffering. His neglect was palpable as he shouted at the media when asked for a response, and over the weekend, Biden chose to relax at a luxurious waterfront mansion in Lake Tahoe, courtesy of a billionaire friend. It wasn't until much later that Biden finally took a short flight from Nevada to visit Maui. But even then, his visit was brief, lasting less than 6 hours. During his time on the ground, he appeared unprepared, apathetic, and confused, casting further doubt on his ability to lead. He started to tell his life stories, how scared he was when his kitchen was on fire. And this is how he gave speech on this serious incident. Compared to this president of our nation, any ordinary person on the street could have been able to come up with more heartfelt words for Hawaii. Unbelievable.
15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside, I watched the firefighters.
So we have all these people dead, nearly 1,000 people still missing, thousands and thousands have lost everything. And Biden is talking about his personal trauma from nearly losing a 67 Corvette, a fire that was a minor extinguished in 20 minutes. In case Joe's disgusting treatment of his own 7th grandchild didn't clue you in, this guy is totally self-absorbed, completely heartless. And here he is laughing about how hot the ground was in Maui. Really, Joe? Take a look.
You guys catch the boots out here? That's some hot ground, man.
Hot ground, man.
The people of Maui, who had endured weeks of sleepless nights and heartache, greeted Biden with signs blasting his response. They shouted, "Go home, Joe Biden." The president's actions, or lack thereof, had left them feeling abandoned and ignored.
From Nevada to visit Maui in person. On the ground, while Joe's motorcade was greeted by locals lining the streets with signs blasting Biden's response, shouting, "Go home, Joe Biden." And during his brief remarks, by the way, Biden appeared completely unprepared, apathetic, and, as per usual, befuddled and confused. Take a look.
Brian Chance, our Senator Maisie, by the way, Maisie, I told my granddaughter, whose name is Maisie as well, she said, that's why I like her. Anyway, but her name is Maisie as well. And Jill Takuda.
Biden spent a total of less than 6 hours in Maui before boarding Air Force One, which you pay for, and of course, carbon emissions, which we all pay for. Right, Joe? And left for his vacation in Lake Tahoe. Once more, during his brief remarks, Biden seemed out of touch with the gravity of the situation. His words and actions were inconsistent with the empathy he had promised during his campaign.
To the people of East Palestine and to the nearby communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania, we have told you loud and clear, you are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. We stand with you, we pray for you, and we will stay with you in your fight to help answer, and the accountability that you deserve. We'll have that accountability. It'll all be out there very clearly.
It's essential to compare this to past presidential responses to disasters. President Trump, for instance, showed up promptly in East Palestine when he promised to do so. In contrast, Biden's absence and lackluster response have left the people of Maui in despair. The federal response from FEMA has been virtually non-existent. The White House offered a mere $700 per family, a total of just $2.3 million to the families as aid money, a stark contrast to the $2,600 per person given to Ukraine. The people of Maui have been let down by their government on multiple fronts.
She's giving these statistics: 600 personnel on the island, $2.3 million in assistance already given. Let's welcome back in Josh Bodie, now Maui resident. Josh, thanks for staying with us.
Morning.
You just listened to this with us, and I think it was particularly interesting. We took that first reporter question. Basically, the reporter was asking her about the disconnect. You know, it's great to hear all of these statistics about all of the aid and all of the personnel, but they're saying that survivor after survivor they speak with are saying that they have not yet seen a meaningful government presence there, and
and
many people are not receiving the aid that they need. What are you seeing on the island, and what is your response to what we just heard from FEMA?
Well, I want to give credit where credit is due, and is the government going to come in and help at where they're at this point? Yeah, but it's in the beginning where it's us that took care of the whole situation, and we always hear these big guys from Washington and even our governor Green talk big talk, and when the situation happened, they just go ahead and cop out to climate change. The disaster of Lahaina did not have to happen. It was irresponsibility from the way they managed the lands, their irresponsibility from the electric companies. What happened? This fire could have been avoided. We have wildfires, we have bushfires. That's one thing, but the way that it happened, it was irresponsible. And it did not have to happen. That's where a lot of the anger lies. And again, it's big government, big talk, but it's the private sector. It's us people here on Maui that are housing our people. We're housing the majority of everything and taking on our own private money to help our friends in need. So yeah, we hear a lot of quack and it sounds good, but the reality is on the ground. The reality, like they say, the proof's in the pudding. So it's horrible.
Critical issues, such as indoor air quality testing and cleaning up the contaminated creek and watershed, have been ignored. The extensive warning system in Maui that stayed silent, it was never turned on. Hawaii's electric company failed to maintain their grid despite prior concerns about sparking a wildfire. Instead, the government has focused on expensive green new energy projects, neglecting the immediate needs of its citizens. In conclusion, the events in Maui reveal a president who seems more interested in vacations and luxury than in serving his own people. The people of the nation feel abandoned and forgotten by President Biden. His actions, or lack thereof, raise serious questions about his suitability for leadership. The disaster in Hawaii shouldn't be political. The mob and the media, the Democrats, anybody with a conscience, a heart, and a soul should be outraged. They should be demanding accountability from state, local, and federal leaders. But that isn't and hasn't happened. Why? Because the politicians, the bureaucrats at fault, they're all Democrats in this case. And as we know by now, Democrats, they almost always get a free pass.